Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and wherever you are, and thanks for joining us tonight here for our town hall, our men's soccer and men's basketball, women's volleyball had successful events last week, so I'm looking forward to sharing a bit more about where we are and where we're going with the women's soccer team here with you all tonight. Before we do get started tonight, though, we'd like to acknowledge respectfully that UNB stands on unsurrendered and unceded traditional Wolastoqey land. The lands of the Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between nations. And as the continued discoveries happen, it's definitely front of mind and time for us all to reflect and consider it as well. So again, welcome to tonight. I know we have a cross section of people here, players that I've coached, players that I played with when I was at UNB, and ones that came before me as well, and my mom as well. So, hi, mom. Again, my name is John Cross, and I'm the head coach here of the women's soccer program at UNB. Just a little bit of history about me. I grew up in Nova Scotia on the South Shore, just outside of Bridgewater, and my UNB story is going to be 21 years old this fall. I came here as a student athlete to take my Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology. Had a 5-year playing career here that, I'll deem it very successful, I would say. A trip to nationals in my second year in 2001, a heartbreaking loss in my final game in a shootout in 2004. But a lot of good experiences, a lot of great coaching, and a lot of those people that continue to be my friends and mentors to this day. And you mean the people that are closest to me, the guys that stood with me at my wedding party, are my best friends that I grew up with, or the guys that I played soccer with at UNB. So it was a very positive experience for me, and set me onto this path here that over 20 years later, I'm still proudly and happily involved at UNB. After I finished up my playing career, I was fortunate enough to join the coaching staff of the men's team in 2005 as I finished up my schooling. I got a Bachelor of Education with a phys ed degree, and then parlayed that into teaching elementary school phys ed from 2007 to 2012 while I was helping out coach the men's team at a volunteer role. And that time saw us win our AUS title. And then as that program continued to grow, and has continued to grow to this date, I was proud to sort of be in the foundational years of that. A neat part of my UNB story is also that I got to play with my twin brother, who's also one of my assistant coaches now. I played with him for a year, and then I got to coach him as well, and we won that AUS championship together. And then in 2012, I was very fortunate and honored to get the opportunity to make the move into coaching full time. Up to that point, it was a volunteer position at UNB and within provincial teams in the club. And I always had in the back of my mind that I would like to coach full time. And I took the courses and gained as much experience as I could over that time. And I was very fortunate to get that job in 2012. And here we are, pretty close to 10 years later. And I'm really proud of where we've brought the program so far, and looking forward to this new decade of soccer that we have going in front of us. I don't do this on my own by any means. I've got 2 long-term assistant coaches that have been with us. As I said, Joe's been actually with the women's program since 2008 and has carried through here with me. And Marc LeBlanc would be our second assistant, and he's been with us since 2016. And then we've got a couple new additions that we're excited about this year to our coaching group with Rachel Burton, Those of you that are familiar with our program, Rachel graduated she finished up in 2020, she graduated, so her final year was 2019. And she played 2 years in the NCAA and then came back to us and is here in Fredericton working right now. So it'll be a great addition to our staff. We also have Michelle Denley and Morgan Kenny. Michelle is an NCAA goalkeeper that is here doing graduate work in our kinesiology faculty. And Morgan is a UNB alum as well, an alum of our men's soccer program. And those two will work with our goalkeeping coaches, and Michelle will hopefully some added responsibility with sports psych. So we've got a really well-rounded staff, excited to work with them. And then there's lots of other people. I think one of the biggest changes probably for a lot of people over the years is just a number of people that are involved in our program really on a weekly basis that have direct contact with our student athletes, whether that's strength and conditioning, sports psychology, team doctors, athletic therapy. We've got a really great network of people that are on field working with our athletes on a daily basis. And then we also have a great support group in the athletics department and beyond that really makes it easy to be a coach and allows the athletes to perform at the level that they're capable of and provide the resources that are needed for us to be successful in our program and in our endeavors. So grateful for all those people that to chip in and get this done, because it takes it's important to have those people involved, and they all bring something a little bit different to our program that's valuable to our student athletes. I always like to start any presentation I do about our women's soccer program with a bit of history on our program. And the part that we like to talk about and start with is our Yo Women. And that was a club that predated women's soccer becoming varsity at UNB. And this group of women were key advocates in moving club soccer back into a varsity status at UNB. And that formed in 1989. And in that 6 years, there were hundreds of women of all abilities that joined that club and played games locally, regionally against other Atlantic University teams at the time. And they led the charge to make women's soccer varsity at UNB. And I think that's an important story to tell, because there's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of dedication, fight, and commitment to making that happen. And I think that's a great foundation and a great group to have set the tone for our organization. And no one's quite told me why they're called the Yo Women, but I've heard different stories over the years. But I thought just a great definition is one that does noble and loyal service, and that's what they've definitely done to build that foundation of our program that looks much different today than it did back then. But we're grateful for them, and I know Cheryl's on this call tonight, and they've got themselves that group has got themselves organized. They're now starting to give back with a Yo Women scholarship, so they're staying connected with our program in that way. And then this is a timeline. 95 was the first year that they competed at the varsity level. They had a couple of really good years. They made the semifinals in the league. And then the program definitely has had an up and down history over its period of time. And then fortunately here over the past 5 or 6 years has probably been the best stretch of women's soccer at UNB in terms of the success on the field, the playoff appearances, creating some firsts in terms of finishing first in the league, making finals, being ranked in the top 10. The number of all-stars, academic all-Canadians has continued to grow, and we look forward to that continuing to happen in here as we get restarted in 2021. I want to talk about our graduating athletes. We have 3 girls that will be moving on from our group that we had this 2020-2021 season. And I'll introduce them to you here quickly. Sylvie Fecto, she's finishing up her education degree right now here in the next week or so, and will leave us as a real leader in our program. Sylvie was highly sought after in her recruiting class. And we were very fortunate to get her here to UNB. And quite early in her career, really in her second year, she took on a leadership role on the field in terms of wearing like the armband and representing her team as the captain. But over those 4 years, the growth in her as an individual and as a leader of the group has been really impressive and rewarding to see. As she set the tone for our group really through this generation of players with her hard work and her dedication to doing everything right. She was actually been academic All-Canadian each year that she's played, AUS All-Star, team MVP. So, and she's going to move on and she's waiting to hear on teaching jobs here. So it sounds like her prospects are very good for the fall. The next one is Emma King Gesso. Emma completed her engineering degree in 4 years, so she slammed a lot of school in her 4 years here, and came to us from Newfoundland. Anyone familiar with that knows how hard it is to get players off the rock, with Memorial being there. But Emma wanted a different student athlete experience. She wanted to go away. And we were really fortunate that she chose our school. And Emma had varied roles over the course of her career here at UNB, but an outstanding teammate, a tireless worker. I think one of my best memories from Emma will be in her last year. She had to miss an exam because of a game we had on Friday night. So the prof handed me an envelope with the exam. Emma played the game, grabbed a snack, wrote her engineering exam in the hallway at Mount A and handed it back to him before the men's game was over. So just really dedicated to everything that she's done. And she's got a job now out of school working at Michelin in Bridgewater. The third grad is Clarice Ramirez. Clarice came to us from Ottawa, and she's finished up school here. She extended her degree by a year to get her honors completed, and she's done that. Clarice, a 5-year starter for us, a dangerous attacking player, one of those players that's as fast with the ball as she is without it. And if we look back over her highlights, there's some pretty impressive moments in terms of her creating offensive chances, scoring goals and setting them up, and also scored a memorable PK winning goal in our 2018 AUS quarterfinal win over Dal to clinch that game for us. And she's here in Fredericton right now, working and gaining some experience as well in some mental health fields. Is her intention is to go into grad school down the line. So as people leave, obviously we have to have people come in, and in our graduating class of 2020, we graduated 11 student athletes. And if you're saying wow, yes, that is wow. Especially it's a big gulp. It's a big chunk of our team. That was 50% of our team that graduated, and that's not by design by any stretch of the imagination. We had girls extend their careers with education. We had a couple of girls that were injured, which extended their careers, and we had a couple of girls that transferred in, which again extended their careers. Those are things you don't necessarily plan on when as you build your recruiting classes. But we welcome these 13 student athletes to our campus in the midst of the pandemic, and they are from BC to PEI, and every single one of them came in. Most of them had at least 14. A lot of them had 28 days of isolation in their residence rooms at the beginning of the year and at Christmas time, and had a very unique first year student athlete and student experience where they went to school in their rooms just like all other student athletes, but they had some tighter restrictions living in residence than than the general public did in terms of their movement and socializing and whatnot. So this is gonna be a unique part of their story when they look back on it at the end. But I've got nothing but admiration for this group, how they came through the year that we just had, and they're all looking forward to a more normal fall 2021 in terms of academics and student athlete experience and that student experience. They made the joke that the first years are going to ask them where their classes are, and they're not going to have any idea either. So we'll have to do some more orientation with them as they come back. But a very welcome group, the biggest recruiting class that we've had, but a very exciting group, as I'll talk about here in a little bit. So you take the 13 from 2020 and you add 4 for our 2021 class. So we didn't need many, but we feel we have 4 really good ones here, and they address the needs that we have going forward. Carolina comes to us from Oshawa FC Durham. Jillian is from Ottawa, as you see. Ella is from Rothesay, grew up playing in Fundy Soccer Club, and Mackenzie's joining us from Halifax. And all Carolina, Jillian, and Mackenzie will add to some of that attacking pieces that we talked about losing a little bit with Clarice and Sylvie and Emma. And Ella prefers to be a back, but she could find herself further up the field as well. Like a real target for us in our recruiting class this year was those attacking minded players. And we're really excited to have these 4 young women join us. And I know they're looking forward to that as well. And they've been putting in work here over the summer to get themselves as ready as possible for the fall. I want to talk now just a little bit about our 2021 season. This is our team picture, which is obviously hopefully a one-off and not professionally done. One of the casualties of 2021 was a professional team pick, actually. So this will do. But as it is for anyone, it wasn't business as normal for us here at UNB over the past year. But we have to be really grateful and very fortunate that we were given the opportunity to be together. Our facilities were open. Our residences were open, that our first year student athletes, as I said, could come in, and we had a fairly normal looking season, fall, in terms of training. We trained 3 to 4 times a week. We didn't play AUS games, but we did move our club season into the fall, which allowed us to play 10 games between September and the first week of November, which I'm pretty confident saying we probably were the only province and one of the few universities that actually had an opportunity to play games and train as normal in the fall. And that's obviously credit to the province of New Brunswick but also to this group of players to follow the protocols and such that were set out, that at times were above and beyond just what general public had to do. But it definitely wasn't right. It was definitely different. We didn't have access to dressing rooms. Very much was that sort of that team feel, because we were asking to show up on time, no earlier than they needed to, come dressed except for your cleats, put your cleats on, keep your mask on. As soon as you get on the field, take your mask off. As soon as practice is done, put your mask back on, take your cleats on, and leave as soon as possible. So it was definitely an exceptional year in that state. And I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges, and probably the misses of the year, is just sort of building that team culture and that team camaraderie, where you're usually encouraging them to be together and to socialize. And we have road trips, and we have preseason trips. We didn't have that very much. We were like, stay away from each other, don't get too close. Socially, they had to stay in their bubbles, or that were their houses. and so it was a very different year in that way, shape, and form. So one of the things I'm very much looking forward to in the fall is getting back to normal there. But then in the winter, we started off in red. The background that you see in that picture is our dome, which we're very fortunate to have, that allows us to train year round. So we had a normal, after a red phase in January, and we got everyone out of isolation from coming back from Christmas. We had a very normal fall in terms of training, scrimmaging and playing, and doing our work in the high performance center. So our winter looked normal-ish, and we were able to get back into the dressing room and just build a little bit more of that team feel. But I have all the respect and the admiration and for these girls and what they did over the course of the year. We had 24 of the 25 of them come back. Only one chose not to. And just really fortunate, admiration for the work that they put in. Lots of respect, and they made gains that will help us get ready for this fall. So what does what does 2021 look like? As you can see, we'll have 17 student athletes that who have not played AUS soccer before, and you mean that second year class is exceptional in their size, but we're really glad that we had that year together to prep them for this fall. Some would say it would be the longest training camp in university sport history to get ready, but there's pros and cons there's obviously pros and cons, right? The pro is that we had a chance to really spend time with them, work with them without the pressures of having to get results every single weekend. So that did take some of the pressure off. Although we missed it, it allowed us a little bit more time and a little bit probably more patience and to move the young group along that we did have. So and we're looking forward to seeing how see them all together again in the fall and go at it. I think there's ways to be nervous about having a young team. You're not going to sure how they're going to fully react and get in situations when they've never played an AUS game before. But I think there's lots of pros as well. There's none of that. They think they know we're good. They believe they're good. They believe that we can compete, and we're just going to go out and go toe to toe every single team with every single weekend. So maybe it's a little bit of naivety, but we're gonna go out and tackle them, and they're all excited to get out there and prove themselves. And I know across the AUS, a lot of teams are in similar boat to what we are, where they're going to be fairly young, with a couple of 2 years recruiting classes. So it'll be an exciting season. It'll be a fun season, just like they always are. But I'm looking forward to seeing them compete. But I'm just looking forward to also spending more time with them when we do like team bonding, preseason trips, on traveling during the season. Those are some of the best memories and some of the best times. You get to see their personalities and everything come out a little bit more at times than you do just when you show up and coach them on the field. So I think everyone's looking forward to that more time together and getting back out and competing and being the first university sport to kick off in 2021 is always an exciting thing on the soccer side of things. As we look forward to our season, this is our schedule, and we're going to start training camp on August 20th. We'll have a 3-week training camp with some exhibition games mixed in there. We'll play UNB SJ and then head over to PEI for 2 or 3 days to play the Panthers and do some team bonding and things like that. And then it's like I said, it's going to be a little bit trial by fire, because our first 4 games are against 4 perennial playoff teams and teams that historically have been good and just like we are. So we're going to get tested right away, but I guess there's no better way than to just jump right into it and see how we compare against teams that have been successful in the past, and where we stack up. So it's really going to drive our prep and training camp. It's that focus on sort of that first road trip to Halifax is on everyone's minds here as they work out and get ready through the summer. But yeah, and again, like I just think it's a great opportunity for us to bring sport back in Atlantic Canada at the university level. We're excited to be the first UNB team out of the gate here to put on our jerseys and get things back to normal. And we're looking forward to the group all being together again. I do just want to share a couple highlights. I skipped over them from that from our past year. Just a couple things. I think, like, academically, even in the unique circumstance we had, that we had 18 out of our 25 student athletes with GPAs over 3.5, which is very impressive, and that's the highest number we've ever had. We have 2 girls that have 4.3 GPAs right now, and those girls are not first year student athletes. So that's a pretty impressive academic track record as well. Bryn Nash, who will be going into her 5th year from Saskatoon, successfully co-chaired our first Women in Sport conference here at UNB. It was canceled in 2020, so they hosted that event virtually and had participants from across the country, and quite an amazing day. And Bryn was a co-chair of a completely student-led group of athletes, that not of athletes, of people that pulled that together. Yeah, and then I think just over the course of the year, there's been lots of things socially that have come up and come out, and our girls have been advocates and have brought themselves aware of those things, and continue to educate themselves and learn about them, and also take leads in helping moving those causes forward, and bringing them to sort of more the spotlight on them in our school community and our greater community as well. So it's really yeah, I think it's really inspiring to see them being involved in many things, not just their sport and their school, but they're getting out there and impacting the community as well. So that's a little bit about where we are and what we've done and where we're headed. But the main point of this is just an opportunity to talk and answer any questions that people may have about our team, where we're going, what we've done, what our thoughts are for the future, or any questions that people may have. So I'd encourage you to, if you feel comfortable, to turn your camera on. Switch your view into gallery mode so we can see everyone on the call. And I'm happy to answer any questions that we may have, or anyone may have. I know some people did submit some questions, so I can address those as well, but I'd open it up to the audience that we have here first.
I'll say something. Hi, John.
Hi.
Yeah, it's interesting when you were saying about the first years moving into their 2nd year, and I don't think you're going to have a problem with like boosting them up. I think you're going to have a problem with like holding them down, because I can only imagine, like, this image comes to my head of these like animals in a cage, because I know for when we had exhibition games and we were in our like training summer and then into our exhibition games, I just remember feeling like so much anticipation. So I can't even imagine what you're going to have there. But just as a general question for you, it's maybe more of a suggestion, but I know that UNB has a really great like onboarding process. So you know what like your expectations are, what kind of like what you're getting into. The athletic director comes to speak with you and everything, but I think it's important to highlight like the offboarding as well. So letting athletes, like, kind of cooling them down and like making you realize that you're not losing something, or because it takes a while to really stop being a student athlete. So maybe something like, I know for our year we had Ryan, so he did like one presentation, but maybe it's something in the winter sessions that you just take those athletes that are leaving, and maybe can be a UNB thing, not just a women's soccer thing, but just to kind of, you know, the anticipations. I know specifically for females, it would be important. So yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a good suggestion for sure. And I know last year they did bring that something like that back. They again just like a one-off session. But yeah, you know, and probably anyone that's been a student athlete here knows when August and September, late August and early September rolls around after that final year, that's sometimes the hardest 2 to 3 weeks of moving on, because you've lost that structure and organization and like that instant group or family, so to speak. So that's a really good.
I still have dreams of like forgetting my cleats or like playing on a team and they're like, you're not eligible anymore. I'm like, yes, I am. I swear I am. So
If we could find another year for you, Sam, we would.
We can do something. The math, we can figure something out with the math, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you also had a question. I think you sent a question in there sort of like about like what our goals are for the fall, and then also sort of going forward and into the next, like sort of, I guess, with this generation of players, as you see how young they are, and like I think our main objectives is like we're trying to win, right? I think there's one thing, and this is an immediate and a long-term goal. There's sort of one thing missing on the walls of BMO Center, and like we were close in 2014, but like is that banner and that AUS championship, right? So I think that's always an immediate goal and a long-term goal, and you mean I'll give credit to Joe for sort of coining the phrase like graduated champion, right? Like that's sort of what we want people to say. I'm graduating with this degree and I'm moving on to this, but also that we won a championship and like we were the first to do that. So I think that's sort of like the front and center. And then just continuing, like, again, especially with such a young group, that mentoring piece, like there's going to be lots of trials and tribulations and good times and challenges with in the season and outside. So just continuing to mentor that group and guide them through, because it's a very unique situation where the majority of the team is in their first 2 years of eligibility. So we're going to have to develop leaders and people quickly in that way, shape, or form. Our older players are awesome in that way, but they're going to be moving on, and this first and second year group has to learn the ways and the expectations, as you said, about how we do things, and probably maybe learn them a little bit quicker than they have been in the past. And then, like, I think going forward even as well, like the plan is always expectation to be successful, but one of the big reasons I wanted to do this town hall is just like to connect and reconnect with alumni and supporters and whatnot, and bring you up to date with what's happening and hear suggestions about how we can engage you a little bit more, and then grow and like really continue to grow that partnership and growth over the next few years. Because I know there's lots of people out there that stay tuned and keep their eyes on it, and yeah, we want to continue to engage them in that way.
I have a question. Hey, John. So I guess with having 17 of 27 players in your current team moving into to this fall, how do you anticipate that going, or what sort of plans do you put in place with them being such a young team and you only have 10? I don't want to say you only have 10 leaders on the team, because obviously there's no reason that the second and first years can't be, but I guess that puts a lot of onus on those 10 girls that are returning, knowing what the program is about and how it works in a functional environment before COVID hit. So how do you anticipate that going, and what sort do you have in place for those first and second year players that are coming in?
Yeah, aside from telling them numerous times that it'll be significantly different next September than it was this September, yeah, I think we'll continue to do some onboarding with them, sort of, to steal Sam's word, that's a good word, like to sort of educate them as much as possible. But I think some of it is just going to have to be like the boots go on and away you go. Someone, as you know, you got to gain those experiences by playing the games and seeing the competition up close. I will say that like the older girls, as you said, say that 10 have been a real good standard, right? Like we do sort of monthly votes in terms of like hardest worker, most dedicated, like best leader, like top leader type thing. And the girls that I won in those categories in my veteran groups are always in that top 3, as voted on by their peers. So that, I think that they're setting the tone. But we're going to do like intentional team building, right? Like we're going to share a bunch of information with them over the course of the summer, just sort of standards, expectations, how we communicate, and like game day, travel, all that stuff. Give them as much information as we can up front, so they're not getting it all as they arrive in September, and then in August they can just focus on hopefully some of that soccer side of things. But it's going to be unique challenges, right? Like last year when we played a game, everyone played. In the fall, when we go on that first road trip, there's going to be 6 to 7 girls that are staying in Fredericton. So and that might be the first time some of these girls have ever not played in a game. So it'll be constant communication and guiding and mentoring, and coach's job, it's a little bit of everything, right? It's sports psych, counselor, advocate, disciplinarian. It's all those different things. So if that answers your question.
I'll mention something else too, just quickly. This is more of like a practical inquiry or suggestion, but with I'm sure a lot of people are watching the Euro 2020s right now, but with what happened with Eriksson, who
Yep.
suffered cardiac arrest on the pitch, I don't remember, or I'm not sure if UNB has a defibrillator like by the field. I'm sure the physios are trained in first aid and CPR and how to use an AED. But I'm just wondering, like, if that's a consideration at UNB, and I guess not just for soccer, but for, like, I'm sure in the gyms they must have one nearby, because it's like a matter of minutes can mean a percentage of saving your life, like 10%. So
Yeah.
I just wonder if that's something you guys thought about.
Yeah, it is. And there's one in the clubhouse in BMO. So yeah. So yes, for sure, right? That's scary circumstances.
Might be
And
worth you just bringing it out onto the pitch. Like, it might even be worth bringing it to the bench, because even the minutes it takes to run, to grab it, to go to figure out what's happening, like, it might be something. Maybe even AUS might want to. Maybe that's something you can bring to them to use.
No, it's a valid thing, but I know they do have we have one in the clubhouse, for sure. And every one of our home events is staffed by a physio or athletic therapist as well. So, but yeah, as we saw, every minute counts in a situation like that. So
cool. I figured, I just wanted to bring it up because when that happened, that was kind of the first thing that came to my mind was.
Yeah.
Was UNB.
Yeah, that definitely causes some time for reflection as well. And especially it came to mind as I almost hit 40 and I'm still running around the soccer field, and I'm on my team. I'm one of the younger guys. So it definitely comes to thought for sure. I'll tackle one of the questions from that was sent in. So one of the questions is how's recruiting? How are we recruiting? And obviously that was a pretty unique experience over the past year, completely done virtually, and it's difficult for coaches and for the student athletes to get seen, because so that's how we're doing it right now. Things start to open up a little bit more. We'll be able to start to travel and see people in person. It's a good year to recruit, as 2022 is a Canada Games. 2021 was supposed to be, but 2022 is a Canada Games year now, and all those students, or all those potential student athletes, will be finishing up grade 12. So they'll finish up Canada Games in August, and then they'll go right into the university training camp. So I think as borders open and things allow, we'll be back on the road. But normal year, May and June, we're on the road quite a bit. Ontario, Ontario, Quebec, Ontario again, sometimes BC, and then really across teams in New Brunswick, obviously, and then across the Atlantic Canada as well. So it's quite a bit of travel, but that's how we do it. And we've been able to recruit from across the country because of it, and we've been able to recruit again after recruiting a first person, right? We get a girl from BC, and quite often we get another one. Like we've got a Saskatoon pipeline here that it's now with their fifth player type thing. So just making those connections and networks and traveling a lot and seeing players. What else is there? Yeah. So a couple comments in there about alumni weekend. 2020 was supposed to be the 25th anniversary of women's soccer at UNB, and I believe the 60th on the men's side. So we had great hopes for that, but obviously COVID interrupted it. So we're hoping in 2022 that we can bring people to campus and have a large scale alumni weekend. But we hope as things again open up, people can make their way to Fredericton, or as we're on the road, we're going to try to be a bit more intentional about with connecting our groups and alumni groups as we travel this year, and connecting with them before we get there, whether it's with events or just joining us for meals post game. So both teams are going to be a bit more intentional on that, and you can always tune in and watch the games online. But 2022, we're hopeful that we can have a proper alumni celebration on the women's soccer side.
John, I had a question that I sent in about potentially having some kind of alumni like archive with photos and footage and different things like that, because it'd be cool to be able to go back. Like I realize that might be an enormous space, but if it's something like, even I know there's a lot of like student jobs where maybe one of the players could just take it on in the winter time and go back and like make some highlights or something.
Yeah, no, I really like that idea. It's not something that I've ever thought about before. So I like that idea, and I think we'll look at some ways to.
Yeah,
I think
we like to look back in the good old days, John, how we used to be.
Well, at least your games are on DVD. Mine are on DVD.
On floppy disk. I think yours are on floppy disk, John.
Right, yeah. So it's a good idea, and something we can definitely start to look at. I think it's just another way maybe even to grow that connection and reflection point for people. To see themselves and reminisce about a good game or something like that. Yeah, I like the idea. So it's about now sort of planning and putting something like that in place.
Even if I know that the UNB women's have an Instagram account too, even if you could have like a dedicated like Thursday highlight or something, or like a throwback because it's Throwback Thursday is a thing, so it could be that, or it could share it even in your stories, or like send out a question, just like post a question, like what's something you remember about, because I know a lot of us that aren't on the call actually follow that account, and like I see the updates there, so it'd be something that maybe you could task someone with. Or
yeah, no, it's a good idea for sure. And I guess that's a good arc. Like, what of the people on the call, like how do we stay in touch? I mean, like obviously some people are very onto social media and they follow the accounts and whatnot. How do people want to hear or hear more about our team or stay more up to date? Like, we'd be open to suggestions and ideas on that. If anyone has any, we've obviously heard like email and posts on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. But if there's anyone has any suggestions or ideas, we'd definitely be open to hearing those. You can share them with me tonight, or again, you can. I think my contact's going to come up here at the end, so we'd be happy to hear about that, your ideas. Okay, so I'll do last call for questions. Peter, I just saw you turn your camera on there, maybe. So I don't know if you.
Yeah, John, I don't have too many questions. I just thought I'd tune in and see how things were going. I'm sitting at practice, actually, watching potential recruits for next year.
There you go. Peter's daughter's was one of our incoming class this year, Olivia, and his Emma, as a younger daughter, will join us in 2022. So we'll have lots of reasons to be in Freddie all the time, or traveling all over Atlantic Canada.
Absolutely. If I wasn't so far away, I could show. She's got a red sweater on now, so she's set.
That's great. That's good. Yeah. And again, like, I appreciate everyone taking the time to tune in tonight. I appreciate that you follow the accounts and stay up to date with our team. We'd love to hear more from you. If you have other suggestions, it's good to see some names of people that I played with but haven't maybe crossed paths with in the last 15 or more years. So yeah, so thanks for everyone taking the time tonight. Feel free to reach out at any time, and with your ideas, suggestions, or just to connect. And yeah, we look forward to playing in the fall and hopefully seeing some of you along the way. And thank you again for your continued support.